The key points I'm going to cover in this webinar are that customers want quality product, probably pretty obvious, and it's the workers who create the product that customers want. Workers need to learn so that they can improve the quality that they deliver. And if workers don't feel safe, it's difficult for them to learn. So it's really important to create a safe environment in which all the workers can learn. Last Planner helps workers learn, improve, and deliver reliable and predictable quality. The promise cycle is at the heart of the Last Planner system. In order to realize these benefits, project delivery teams need an approach that treats all workers with respect and helps them to learn and to improve. And finally, for full benefits, the changes involved need to be implemented at sectoral, corporate, and project levels. So it's throughout the industry. So I'm splitting the webinar into 3 sections. The first is about improvement, learning, and feeling safe. The second is about the 8 Last Planner conversations and Flora's promise cycle. And the third is about the major level change, and it's a summary of what we're going to do. So I'd hope there would be small group discussions. There won't be, but I'm going to ask you for key points and questions for clarification. And we're going to finish with a plus delta at the end, which is a way of you giving me feedback about how this has gone. Okay, so part 1, it's about improvement, learning, and feeling safe. Learning leads to improvement. Most construction knowledge is tacit. It's stored in our muscles and in our brains. And making tacit knowledge explicit is primarily done through conversation. Conversations you have with workers, the conversations workers have with each other, the conversations you have with designers, or if you're a designer, with the builders, and so on. And most people need to feel safe in order to share information and to learn. W. Edwards Deming was one of the pioneers of the quality movement. Really great thinker. He was born 121 years ago in 1900. And one of the things that he talks about early on in the book, Out of the Crisis, and we're coming out of a crisis now, is that if you set about improving quality, your costs will decrease and your productivity will improve. Your costs decrease because there's less rework, fewer accidents, mistakes, delays, snags, better use of equipment, better use of materials. That contributes to productivity improvement. And with that, you can capture more of the market and provide more jobs and stay in business. If you try to improve productivity, in many organizations, the tendency is to throw money at whatever. So your costs go up. You want new and better cranes or new and better machines or whatever it is. If you start out by trying to reduce costs, you cut costs, almost invariably costs go up, because when cutting costs, you create opportunities for more delays, more snags, more mistakes, and so on. So improving quality is the best way to reduce your costs and to improve your productivity. This is a picture of what happens in construction from Glenn Ballard, one of the pioneers in the lean construction movement. I've redrawn that and it looks like this. The rework happens when the production crew misunderstand what's wanted. That's why it's really important that the assessors, the customers, and the production crew have a shared understanding of the criteria. And the criteria are defined here in the information, the conditions of satisfaction, the specifications, the answers to requests for information, the designs and the method statements, the operational designs. They are all part of the directives which make clear what the task is, or try to make clear what the task is. Unfortunately, they are based on tacit information, information which is held in people's heads and in their muscles. A bricklayer, many bricklayers find it really difficult to tell you how they lay bricks. They lay bricks like there's no tomorrow. But if you ask them to tell you how they lay bricks, they struggle. They have to really think about it because they're using muscle memory, tacit knowledge in order to do that. So if I'm a plasterer, my production task is to plaster this particular wall. I've got to have the wall to start with. I also need people, materials, tools and equipment, somewhere safe to do the plastering, and safe external conditions. Those are the resources I need to do the work, but I also need to know what is wanted, the directives. So it's really important that as plasterer, I have a shared understanding with the people who are responsible for the directives of what's required. If I don't have that, the chances are I'm not going to meet the criteria and I'm going to have to rework it somehow. So this is why this is really important. So much of the information that we have is not explicit. It's down here. It's the tacit stuff that exists in people's heads and in people's muscle memory. What's explicit is very, very small, relatively speaking. What we want work to do on our construction sites is to flow. In order that the work flows, we need information, prior work, people, equipment, materials, safe external conditions, and safe space to flow. But we also need shared understanding of the information and of the prior work that's required, and of the resources that we will require in order to deliver the work that we want to deliver. If people don't feel safe to share information because they think they might get blamed, or they think there might be a claim or something else, information isn't going to get shared. What helps people feel safer are things like social interactions, community identification, because they feel that they are part of a community. There's some reciprocity. People share information back, help them. There is trust. There's a shared language and a shared vision. The shared language doesn't necessarily mean English or Arabic, but it's a shared it's a way of understanding. And I'm going to tell you a story a bit later on in the third section, where nobody spoke one language that everyone understood, but there were high levels of collaboration and sharing of information. So together, these help create psychological feelings of psychological safety, and this is really important. And Amy Edmondson, who coined this term, wrote this book, and it's well worth reading. And if you want the workers who are working for you to improve quality, they're going to need to learn to improve. And what stops you feeling safe enough to learn at work? Feeling confused, feeling resigned, feeling frustrated, feeling arrogant, impatience, boredom, feeling overwhelmed, or feeling distrust, skeptical, and feeling insecure and lacking in confidence. Those are all reasons why people don't feel safe. And so is fear itself, anxiety. It motivates people to hide things. And there's lots of research which shows that it limits the amount of learning that people are willing to do. It limits memory formation, creativity, and creative problem solving. So taking fear out of work is really important. And the book that's there, Learning to Learn and the Navigation of Moods, all of those, that list on the left, and fear, they're all moods. And if we can eliminate those moods and replace them with moods that really encourage learning, then things will go a lot better. Very quickly, the books I've referred to are here. I haven't referred to this one, but it's good too. And you can pick those up when you get the slides. Now, we're going to have problems with this. I'm saying what I was going to link to another Google Doc with a request to share what you thought the key points were from this first part of the presentation. So we can't do that. Please, would you do that in the chat while I go off and have a look at the Q&A? What are the key points that you've learned? Please don't go to the link that Louise posted. Just post the key points that you come up with in the chat, because we won't you won't be able to make the Google Doc work. There are no open questions yet, but I'll keep that open. And Mohammed, I will provide the slides. Shihan, that is a really good question. We'll come back to it. Shihan, there is a separate, just to the right of the chat symbol, there are two chat boxes called Q&A. If you post your question in there, it won't get lost. Thank you very much, Johan. Good. Some good key points coming through. Thank you. Thank you, Mahmoud, for your question. Okay, great. Good, good. Thank you, Shirhan, as well. Thank you, Mohammed and Laura. Okay, Shirhan, you say, how do you create psychological safety when most employees are concerned about repercussions? Why are they concerned about repercussions? Repercussions from whom? How? I think you need to get to the root cause of why they fear repercussions. Once you've done that and you've addressed those issues, then over time, they will come to feel more secure and it will be easier for them to learn. But you do need to work particularly hard. If you, Mahmoud, what is the future for lean construction concepts in the Middle East? I don't know. I have not worked in the Middle East. And I think that you've got some expertise in the region. You should be tapping into that because they will have a much better handle on things. Luai is certainly one of them, and I can see he's typing something. So, Mohammed, how can agility be blended into the projects? Could somebody turn Mohammed's microphone on? Because I'd like to hear a little bit more about what he has in mind.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, Mohammed.
Yeah,
can you say a bit more about what you mean?
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to ask this question. What I meant is, so nowadays we use two types of project delivery methods. Like we use conventional waterfall methods for projects, where we do all upfront planning and all. But in agility, is most of the things like more flexible, and it's just like what we adapt from software industry. So we have a number of iterations for the projects. So it's an opposite of what we do with conventional waterfall methods. Can we incorporate agile methodology into a little into the lean concepts in projects related to construction?
Yes, you certainly can. And one of the things I'm working on at the moment is about why the construction sector is broken.
Yeah.
And why that works against the way we need to do construction effectively. Yes, we get buildings built, but very few of them are delivered at the same time, on budget, with the required scope and safely. Most projects, like 95% of projects, don't meet all those criteria. And it's crazy that they don't. So my belief is that the change needs to start with the clients, because the customers, because the contract, the procurement system is decided by the customer. And I believe that the procurement system is part of the problem. Now, we're going to come back and pick up some more questions later. I'm going to move on now. I want to go to part 2. I want to talk about the last planner conversations and the promise cycle. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Last planner is a social system for projects. It can be used in all types of projects. There are 8 structured conversations. The promise cycle is at its heart. Promises are actions in words alone. Last planner is a promise management system. Last planner promises are based on lots of planning, and last planner delivers lots of benefits. And there's much more to lean construction than last planner. So last planner, it's crew level planning by the last planners, the crew leaders. And the last planner system was developed by Glenn Ballard and Greg Howell starting in about 1980. It wasn't finally launched until about 1994. It's a social system. It's a social system for projects. And projects are delivered by people. There are 8 key conversations. And number 8 is learning, measurement, and everyday improvement. Number 7 is production management. Some of you may know it as daily stand-ups. Number 6 is commitment planning. Some people talk about it as weekly work planning, but it's where the last planners in the last planner system promise the work that they will do in the next period. The next period might be the next week, it might be the next day, it might be the next shift. It depends on the type of project it is. It's likely to be a shift, for example, if you're on shutdown maintenance on a petrochemical plant, for example. 5 is design of operations, sometimes called first run studies. And this is a conversation about how we're going to do each task. So we bring the team together to plan how the work is going to be done safely, swiftly, and so on. In order to make promises, we need to be, the trade foreman, the crew leaders need to be clear that the work can be done. It's not sufficient that the schedule says the work should be done. We need to know that the work can be done because we've got everything, all those flows that I talked about earlier, in place. We need to make the work ready. In order to sort out the right sequence for the work to be done, we bring the crew leaders together to plan how they're going to complete a phase of the works. Between 2 major milestones, a phase will usually last 2 to 3 months. If you're doing shutdown maintenance, then the phase may be 5, 10, 15 days. And you may be asking, well, we did it in 15 days last time. How can we do it in 12 days this time? You're getting everyone together to really work out how they can do this very, very slickly and make the work really flow. Then there's the milestone planning. The milestones that I just talked about in terms of the beginning and end of phases. And then the other one, which has come from one of your colleagues in Qatar, Paul Ebbs, risk planning. And if you want to know more about this, there's a link bottom left there. And I hope that if he hasn't done so already, Paul will be doing one of these webinars talking about this. All right. Listening to the conversations helps you to assess the mood of the project. Remember, I talked about there are good moods and there are bad moods. Bad moods stop people learning, stop people improving. Good moods make it easier to learn and to improve. Listening to the conversations helps you manage the moods on the project. So there are these 8 key conversations, and commitment planning, where people make promises, are right at the heart of the last planner system. And all the lower ones, 1 to 5, help the last planners, the crew leaders, to prepare to make reliable promises. And I'm going to skip that. So conversations for action, reliable promising, comes from Gloria Flores' dad, Fernando Flores, and he reported it here in Conversations for Action and Collected Essays. Imagine you've got a customer and a performer. First thing the customer has to do is prepare, and then she or he can make a request. It might be an invitation to tender. It might be, can you help me with, it, you know, the request can take all sorts of forms. It doesn't matter, but it's a signal to a potential performer to negotiate the conditions of satisfaction and the due date. What exactly do you want, and when do you want it by? Those define the quality of the work to be done. What the customer would like from this potential performer is a promise. If the potential performer likes it and feels that it's deliverable, they are going to make a promise. The promise could be of 3 different types. It could be, yes, I'll do that. Or it could be, yes, I'll do that if you can get the architect to let me have the drawings by next Thursday. The customer knows exactly what she or he needs to do in order that what they want is delivered. Or the performer can say, no, I can't do that. It's not possible for me to do that in that time. But you might want to talk to Abdul or Mohammed or whoever it happens to be who can do it, or might be able to do it. Bad news early is really good information. Saying no is really important. But if you do say yes, then you're going to start performing as the performer, and hopefully you're going to declare complete. When you declare complete, that's a signal for the customer to assess what you've done, and hopefully to say thank you, to pay your invoice or whatever it is. This goes on in families. it goes on in companies, it goes on throughout life. This starts when you're born. You come out of the womb, and the first thing you do is generally to cry. That is a request. Your mum and the medical team want to find out what that request is about. It's usually pretty obvious, but isn't always. So this is the promise cycle, and it helps build trust and understanding, which is a great basis for working collaboratively together. And notice that these four words and phrases, request, promise, declare complete, and declare acceptance, are all actions that are performed with words alone. Actions performed with words alone. So they are really, really important. And this is well worth studying in your projects and starting to use consciously. So in order to make reliable promises, it's really important that everyone has the ability to say no. And going back to Shihan's question, how do you create psychological safety? Psychological safety would mean that you feel free to say no when most employees are concerned for repercussions. Most employers and many subcontractors feel that it is career limiting to say no. If they feel that, then you can't trust a promise that they make. If they are not free to say no, you can't trust a promise that they make. It's really, really important that people feel safe enough to say no. It's not good enough that you've said it's okay for them to say no. They need to feel safe enough that they can say no. So in order for you to make a reliable promise, yes, you need the ability to say no, but you also need to feel competent to perform, or that you've got the access to the competence. You can estimate how long it will take hands-on. You've got the capacity to do it and the willingness to allocate that capacity. You're not having an unspoken conversation with yourself in conflict with that promise. I don't know about you, but I sometimes get a little monkey that comes and sits on my shoulder and says, nah, no chance. There's no chance that you can do that. Listen to the monkey or whatever it is that sits on your shoulder and take note of it if it starts saying it's not going to work. And finally, we all know that we make promises with the very best of intentions to our kids, to our parents, whoever, and we fail. So being responsible means that you're going to help clear up the mess that ensues. Going to help your colleagues cope with the fact that you failed to deliver when you promised to. Okay. So Last Planner helps create reliable workflow. It helps make work ready. It coordinates actions and enables you to learn and improve rapidly. But it's really important to promise reliably, and allow others to do so as well. Traditional construction is a commitment-free zone. Managers tell crews what to do. The Last Planner system is a materials management system, an information management system, and a commitment management system. And it's making and keeping commitments that gets work done. Okay, so going back to this and this, Rework happens when production crews misunderstand what's wanted. You remember this, the importance about shared understanding. How do we create that? We go through the risk planning, the milestone plan, the phase plan, and both of these two say what should be done. We then do the look ahead planning to make work ready so that it can be done. Only then are we in a position to make commitments about the work that we will do in the next period. Then we can move into production management and get all the learning out so that we don't make the same mistakes again. So we've got this process here in the left: plan, 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 experiment, improve, plan, promise, produce, and learn. Lots and lots of planning before you promise, then you produce. Hopefully you get it right first time, but if you don't, you've got an opportunity to learn from that so that you can do it better next time. Okay, so I would like you now, please, in the chat, item 5 is not missing, it's here, it's on the right. Because the design of operations can happen at any of these points in the process. But thank you for pointing that out, Shihan, and helping me make it clear for everyone else as well. So what I'd like you to do is use the chat to summarize the key points for you from what we've just talked about, or what I've just talked about. So ignore this link, just use the chat, please, and then use the Q&A for any questions that you've got. And as I hope you've realized, it's quite safe to write whatever you want in the chat. I like that comment, Yahya Ibrahim. We need more planning. Yes, you've got plenty of time for rework. So if we did more planning, maybe we wouldn't need to spend so much time doing rework. Ramaz Al-Chama, it would be great if you could post that question in the Q&A rather than in chat, please. Okay, and thank you for the questions. So Thomas Buckley, you've written wow exactly. Should that read as how exactly? Okay. Sama, thank you for the link to IRMA 360, Paul Ebb's approach to managing risk. That's great. Okay. So going to the questions. I think Laura sent how to eliminate the blame culture and ensure that workers feel safe to share is a really good question. And you've identified a cause, the blame culture. Why does the blame culture exist? I'm going to talk in a few minutes about using 5 whys to find root causes. I think it may help if you start to think about why the blame culture exists, and then get deeper, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And you can come back and ask more about that later. Would you please mention 1 or 2 practical methods to get command and control? No, that's disappeared. Oh, no, there it is. To get command and control people to shift to provide safe environments. It's really important to help people understand how command and control based on the critical path method works against project efficiency. Using critical path method, critical path analysis is very easy because you've got the computer software. But I found a wonderful quote recently about that. This is Rodney Turner and colleagues in a book called Perspectives on Projects. There is another reason why CPA remains such a key part of project management. The software companies have invested so much in their products that they cannot afford to see their value wiped out overnight. A lot of the problems in construction, as far as I'm concerned, stem from the contractual system that we use and the use of critical path methods. Microsoft Project, Primavera, all the rest of that stuff. It doesn't help because it doesn't help because it's based on forecasts about how things will be weeks, months, years ahead. If things are, one of the things about the last planner system and why it's creates much more reliability is because it's dealing with the way things are now. The planning work is done by the last planners, and they are continually updating their map of the way things are going on the basis of what's actually happening on the site. The first planners who develop Primavera or Microsoft Project or whatever it is, models and schedules, don't know what's going on site because they're doing it weeks, months, years ahead. And when they update it, they are updating it well behind current reality. So getting senior managers who are relying on schedules, critical path schedules, to change their tune, you're going to have to run Last Planner in parallel with Primavera or whatever it is for a while until they realize that it's not helping. But this is also an issue which customers need to help with because many contracts require the use of the critical path method. Karisha, it is very difficult if the company culture doesn't support it, Karisha. This is why in this next section, I'm going to be talking about sectoral, corporate, and project level change. We've got to make that change in the way, in the expectations that people have, the way we do things around here, which is one definition of culture. How do you get management buy-in? Sheehan's asking. To generate value, we need to show value. I think before that, you need to know what the customer values, and every construction customer values something different. So it's what is value for this customer may well not be value for another customer. Many things will be of value to all customers. But you really need to start by analyzing what it is that your customers want. And it's really difficult to do it when there's no management buy-in or support for lean, but you can at least ask senior management, what is it that our customers want? And if you don't believe they've understood what customers want and you feel safe enough, keep asking until they say, well, maybe we should go and talk to the customer and find out. And that, I think, will help reduce the extent of the blame culture. Okay, I'm going to move on, unless Alfredo or Luai suggest there are other questions that I should address now. Okay, I will move on. Sectoral, corporate, and project level change plus a summary is this part. And we've got another 15 minutes, good. All this is going to involve change. You will need to change your behavior in order to change the culture and change the way you think so that you get the results I know you want on your projects. All this is going to involve everyone changing their behavior. Senior managers, and some of you have been asking questions about that, but it's going to involve you in changing your behavior. I'm going to outline some of the changes, and I want to start by telling you a story. This was in South Africa in 2009. These guys came together to work on the enabling works for an open cast coal pit. And we've just finished planning, and you can see the plan on the wall behind them all. No one in this photograph speaks one language that everyone understands. There are 13 national languages in South Africa, and half the crew leaders were illiterate, even in their own language. We did the planning in the wet season in January. And I said, well, as we were doing the planning, I was facilitating the planning. I said, when does the wet season end? And everyone said, oh, it's 1st Feb, always. So up until the 1st of Feb, we planned to work 3 days a week out of the 6. And then from the 1st of Feb, we planned to work 6 days a week because it was dry. It's going to be dry. In fact, the wet season continued through most of February. Didn't stop till about the 23rd, 24th of Feb. Every time it rained, the trade foreman piled into this cabin where the plan is up on the wall. He'd used Post-it notes to plan the work. And they replanned. This project was due to finish at the end of August of that year, 2009. They finished it in early July, 6 weeks early. It was going so well that the customer awarded this team another contract without putting it out to tender. And the trade foreman, they may not have been literate, but they knew what they were doing. They were able to tell the engineers that there was a problem with the design. And the engineers said, nah, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Guess who was right? It was the trade foreman. So, last planner will often throw up things that you don't realize because everyone gets together and talks about things. There's learning. Remember what I was saying about tacit and explicit knowledge. Okay, so value in lean construction. Value is key in lean construction, and value is what the customer wants. Value is what the customer wants. Who is the customer? Well, there's the client, the owner, but there's also the next trade in line. So if I'm the plasterer again, the next trade in line might be the painter. What does the painter want from the wall that I'm going to plaster? How does he want it to be? Because of the finish that he's going to put on that wall. It might be the designer. It might be the end users. It might be the patients in the hospital that we're building, or the spectators in the stadium we're working on, or whatever. So my next question then is, who creates value on your projects? And I've given you the wrong code here. I'm sorry, I should have changed it to the previous code on Menti. So the code on Menti that you want is the one I sent to Luai. And I forgot to change it here. It's 86333027. Thank you, Luai. Luai's just posted it in the chat. Please use that. And I will set up the next slide. Who creates value for customers? Sorry. I'm sorry, we've got problems on the technology side, I think. I'm sorry, because I touched another keyboard. I think I've screwed this up. So I don't know. I am very sorry, but I am unable to make this work. So we're going back to chat. Who creates value on your projects? In chat, please. Very short answers. I am really sorry for this. So I've got stakeholders, client, workforce so far. All stakeholders, the product owner and the team, designer, architects, the crew, the customer, the team, value is related to the definition of value of the customer. Yes. My question is, who creates the value? Last planner, team, right manager, customer. Okay. What I said earlier was that value is created by the workers. It's the people who do the plastering, lay the bricks, pour the concrete, fit the windows, install the air conditioning, the electrics, the plumbing, tile the walls, paint the walls. It's the workers who create the value. The people who, in conventional organizations, are depicted as at the bottom of the triangle. As Tessie Superalis said, it's the tradespeople. It's the crew, as somebody else said much earlier. The customer defines the value they want, but it's the workers who deliver that value. And I imagine that those people are the people that Shihan was talking about when he talked about most employees concerned about repercussions. We really have to make it very safe for the workers to do quality work and not feel that they're going to be blamed if they do make mistakes. That's exactly right, Mahmoud Mansour. Thank you for that. Since the workforce create the value, that's why we need to take their input into the planning process. This is what Last Planner does, absolutely. And I've had a note from Luai saying, can I talk about blame culture? I will come to that, Ramesh. Okay. And who decides what the value creators should do each day depends on how your project is being managed. If it's being managed with a critical path schedule, that is usually the way that what the value creators should do each day is decided. There's no check to see whether it can be done, and there's no, generally no consultation, so they don't feel safe to speak up and say, Mr. Manager, we can't do that because we haven't got sufficient materials, or we haven't got the right materials, or we've been, supplied with the wrong materials, whatever it is. So they go ahead and do it with the wrong materials because that's what they've been told to do. They know they're the wrong materials, but they still go ahead and do them. I've been getting hurry up signals from Luai quite correctly. I'm sorry that I'm overrunning. So what can you do to help the workers feel safer and feel more secure? Let's go to the questions. Where is the one from the blame culture because of being irresponsible and being unaware of something new to you and your traditional way of thinking. Ramez, do you want to turn Ramez's microphone on, please, Luai? And then he can say a bit more about this.
Yes, hi. Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
So yes, I think being unaware of something new to your culture, to your same like lean culture, this would attack the old school of project management actually, and they feel a kind of how to go with this new system for managing things and how to apply last planner in this manner. So yes, being unaware of something or the fear of being unaware is the main reason. Also, the other reason can be being irresponsible for the task assigned to you. So you try to just find to escape from such situation and blame others and say this is because of this and that without taking responsibility.
Yep, I think if you or I know that we're going to get blamed if things go wrong, we're going to work to avoid the responsibility. That's human nature. So tackling a blame culture is a really tough challenge, but it's a challenge worth accepting and working on. I said I would go on and talk about root cause analysis. So I'm going to show you this slide. So you make a problem statement here, and then you ask the question, why does that problem exist? And there may be a number of reasons. So you fill them in. If there are 2 reasons, you just choose 2 of them. And then for each of those reasons, you say, why do they exist? And you find the root cause of those. And you go on asking the question why until you've got to as far as you can go. It's called 5 whys because you may use all 5. You may need more than 5. You might need 6 or 7 whys. But on average, it works out at 4 or 5 whys. And on the basis of what you find as the root cause, then you can create some countermeasures. They're not solutions, they're countermeasures, things that you think are going to make a difference, and define some follow-up actions. If you want to know a little bit more about this, have a look at this link here, bit.ly/good5y. That will help. What comes next? We need to rigorously observe what happens in the field. Root cause analysis of rework to establish if lack of shared understanding of directives created the need for rework or whether it was something completely different. What makes it easier or more difficult to share understanding of the conditions of satisfaction in a construction project? How can we make it easier for project stakeholders to share tacit knowledge online and to recognize the importance of sharing implicit knowledge to mitigate risk? And finally, what makes it easier or safer for workers to stop and correct defective work?